Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël.
Thank you so much. Mr. Secretary, based on the President's statement, moving forward, the relations with Saudi Arabia won't be affected by the killing of Khashoggi, and how can you differentiate between the kingdom and the crown prince?
Yeah. So it's a mean, nasty world out there. The Middle East in particular, there are important American interests to keep the American people safe, to protect Americans, not only Americans who are here, but Americans who are traveling and working, doing business in the Middle East. It is the President's obligation, indeed the State Department's duty as well, to ensure that we adopt policies that further the America's national security. So as the President said today, the United States will continue to have a relationship with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They're an important partner of ours. We will do that with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, its people. That is the commitment that the President made today. It's that straightforward. This is a long, historic commitment, and one that is absolutely vital to America's national security. We are determined to ensure that we continue to make sure that we take care of the American people in all of the strategic decisions we make about with whom we work around the world.
Michelle with NPR. So one quick follow-up on that and then a question on Iran. So does the America First agenda mean putting U.S. business interests ahead of human rights concerns? And then on Iran, have you considered any specific actions, specific sanctions to pressure Iran to release the American citizens who are held there?
Hey, try taking your second question first.
Yep.
We are engaged every day, literally every day, in working to return every U.S. citizen who is either wrongfully detained or a hostage somewhere around the world. That certainly includes Bob Levinson and all those that are being held by the Iranian regime. We're determined to get them back. As President Trump has made very clear, we're not going to pay a price return, but we are prepared to work with all those who can assist us in getting those Americans returned to their families and returned here to our country. Your other question is best answered by talking about what we have already done. There has been an enormous effort with respect to fact-finding with pertaining to the death, the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. A lot of U.S. resources have been devoted to determining the facts to the best of our ability to determine precisely what happened there. The United States took a very strong response. We have sanctioned 17 individuals in connection with that investigation. We are at the same time committed to making sure that we place America's national security interests and all the actions that take place in the context of doing the right thing to make sure that America continues to thrive and grow. And when we do that, the world is better off.
It is Wednesday, the 21st of November of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. It's not a slam against the Catholic religion. Indeed, folks, it is merely a very lovely egg dish with a hollandaise sauce. Very lovely. And any perceived slams against the Catholic religion is because I lived it. Okay? From within. Okay, enough of that. Boy, what news is there out in the world? Ivanka used her emails, and apparently the elite press, the fashion magazines, are determining that no liberal would be so cruel as to say and chant, "Lock her up." Are you serious? How about if we don't chant it? How about if we just say it once and then write it down and make it into law? Why don't we do that? Okay, well, hypocrisy knows no limit in this particular family, and one might say the whole of the GOP. Had a debate in Mississippi last night against Hyde Smith and Espy. Hyde Smith got all of her debate demands met, and I don't know why or how that could have occurred, except for the fact that the Mississippi Farm Bureau, who was sponsoring the debate, is also Hyde Smith's largest campaign contributor. So, there was that. No audience, no press. I guess they had to do it in a skiff, and I believe, all of her demands were met. And I'm pretty sure that Espy was gagged and hung upside down from a magnolia tree. Okay, just to give you that Mississippi flavor. And so much more going on. Oh, Zinke. Zinke says that it's the radical environmentalists, the evil radical environmentalists that are the cause of the wildfires in California because of the poor forest management. Except these forest fires, let's be clear. These wildfires didn't happen in a forest. Paradise had already been thinned out from a previous fire just a few years ago. So I guess you could say, the forest had been swept pretty damn clean around Paradise. It was an urban wildland interface. And it's not even wildland at that point. Let us be clear. And Zinke, radical environmentalists, boy, they got their Goldstein. And anybody who flies a flag above the Interior Department, let everybody knows he's there, ought to take their cherry ice cream and their little marbles and go sit in a cell for a little while by themselves. And we can make that happen, and we can start doing that process starting January. Let's do it. What's on the rest of the menu? Well, Mike Pompeo. Hey, it's a cruel, cruel world out there, and journalists love exposing that cruel, cruel world. So what's the big deal about Khashoggi getting murdered, dismembered, thrown into a vat of acid? He died doing what he loved. That's the Secretary of State, who before that was supposedly running the CIA. I don't think anybody in the CIA allowed him to run it. They're smarter than that. That's why they're the intelligence community. I know. On the rest of the menu in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, a Georgia woman was jailed for 4 months for possession of cotton candy. Cops said it was meth. She said it was cotton candy. 4 months later, it turned out to be cotton candy. That's a sticky situation to be in now, isn't it? The shadow attorney general, Matthew Whitaker, earned $1.2 million from a shady right-wing dark money group. I wonder how many rubles are in their bank accounts. First, we have to find out who they are. And Facebook is sued by the Russian firm linked to the woman charged by federal prosecutors for attempting to meddle in U.S. elections. Russia suing Facebook. Okay. After the break, we then move to the chef's table, where California's wildfire air pollution nightmare is a scary sign of what is to come. Yeah, you see all those pictures of Beijing, and everybody's walking around with particle masks on? That's what it's going to look like here. And Switzerland votes this Sunday on whether they want cows with or without horns. And it is a national debate that's riling the voting public. And they are coming out and voting in numbers not really seen before. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is the chat room link monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Do check out her shows on Saturday. At the Table with Kelly Lincoln begins at 3 p.m. on the West Coast. That would be 6 p.m. on the East Coast. Later on, she teams up with Ricky May, and they together command the Roundtable Roundhouse Power Hour from 9 p.m. West Coast, midnight East Coast for a power hour. To the leftish of the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the contribute button. And if you could become a Patreon of Netroots Radio, a small recurring donation goes a long ways here. I'm making an entreaty. I know it's the holidays and everybody's got other places and concerns that they need to spend their money. But if you can afford even just, a coffee a month and or buy Netroots Radio a coffee a month, that goes a long ways, as I say. And your contribution is greatly appreciated. So thank you very much. We are truly unable to do this without you. Costs are going up, and I was thinking, when you're on a fixed income, they really fix you good. Wow. I mean, it almost is like the fix is in. Maybe we can change that somehow, some way, somehow. Probably not in my lifetime, but in the meantime, thank you so much for your contributions to Netroots Radio. Our bills are being paid, and we have you to thank for that. Follow Netroots Radio on Twitter. Tom takes care of that platform, and we are grateful for that. Kelly does take care of the Facebook Live platform app over there on Facebook. God, I hate Zuckerberg. Ugh, God, he's just loathsome. You can follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post a show notes and links diary on Daily Codes about 10 minutes before showtime. I try to get the links up on social media as quickly as I can, but 10 minutes before showtime, you're scrambling. Okay, then you can also follow the show on Facebook, such as Facebook is. We are on Twitter at Cookbook West. Pick up podcasts of the show by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, iHeart, iTunes, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know what to say after all that. They're everywhere, except I got to get on Libsyn again. I used to like Pandora, except for one thing. I don't like a computer making my playlist. Other than that, Pandora was great. Okay, so let's start off with this first article here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy by Philip Smith from the Independent Media Institute. A Georgia woman has filed a federal lawsuit after she spent nearly 4 months in jail because a roadside drug test administered by untrained police officers falsely identified a bag of cotton candy as methamphetamine. Monroe County resident Dasha Fincher filed a lawsuit last week against Monroe County. The two deputies who arrested her and the company that makes the drug test. The lawsuit argues that the Monroe County Sheriff's Office was reckless and negligent and violated her civil rights. Once again, we have to be reminded there is a maximum IQ allowed to be a police officer these days. According to the lawsuit, the car Fincher was riding in was pulled over on New Year's Eve 2016 because of a dark window tint. And then the cops later in the report said, but it didn't violate the law. It was perfectly within the parameters. And I think what they meant is that the occupants of the car had a dark skin tint. I really think that's what they meant. Deputies Cody Maples and Alan Henderson spotted a large open plastic bag inside the vehicle, and Fincher explained that it was cotton candy. Well, the deputies did not believe Fincher and used a roadside field drug test, which they said indicated there was meth in the bag. She was then arrested, hauled off to jail, charged with meth trafficking, possession of meth with intent to distribute. Her bond was set at $1 million, which she was unable to come up with, so she sat in jail for the next 4 months until she got to see a judge. In March of 2017, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation lab results revealed that the substance was not an illegal drug. It was cotton candy. Longtime listeners of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and also the original iteration of this show from the beginning, probably have heard this before. But when I was, I believe, still in high school, or maybe I was on my way from high school into college, regardless, I ended up having to care for my sisters, my younger sisters' horses. And I knew I would have to, and I argued against them getting horses because I knew I was going to have to take care of them, and indeed I did. Even after I went off to college. I mean, college was only about 30 miles away, but still, I had to drive those 30 miles, take care of the horses. I got pulled over by San Bernardino County cops, and I had a bale of alfalfa in the trunk of my car. They opened up the trunk and insisted it was pot. Of course, being the smart-ass young kid I was at the time, I said, if you think it's pot, smoke it. They didn't like that at all and hauled my ass into jail. And I just remember my dad coming to bail me out or whatever it was. I got to leave with my dad. But he was pretty irate that the cops couldn't tell the difference between alfalfa and pot. Because maybe even then there was a maximum IQ allowed to be a cop. You know, I don't know. If there was no demand, there would be no supply. Well, the lawsuit says the drug test is the NARC 2, manufactured by North Carolina-based Searchy Acquisitions. Oh, they don't really make it. They just took over the company that does. That particular field drug test is known for producing errant results. But they're pushing it like crazy on the cops because who cares about errant results as long as the cells are filled? Because it is a business. Chapman of Alternate brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Before we get into this actual article, I need to mention I just need to mention, I know it's a big news story. I try to go after the stories that slip under the radar just a tad, or aren't at the top of our consciousness. But I need to make mention of the flippancy in which Trump ignored Khashoggi's murder. It says a lot, not only about how he feels of an individual, but also how he feels, about the profession of journalism on a grander scale. And that is something that, we are already alarmed about, but it should steal our resolve in, removing this fellow from office. And if it takes us 2 years to do it, to vote him out, then we do that. And what that means is we have our work cut out for us, because there are forces arrayed against our endeavor that are national in scope, international, I might say. But we are making inroads, and we will prevail. On Tuesday, the Washington Post reported that Matthew Whitaker, the former U.S. Attorney and Jeff Sessions' Chief of Staff, currently serving as Acting Attorney General — I think he's a shadow Acting Attorney General, by the way — spent 3 years and was paid $1.2 million to run a right-wing dark money nonprofit, the Foundation for Accountability and Civic Trust, known as FACT. They're always the opposite of what they say they're doing out there. Oh, we're for equal rights. Oh, yeah, you're going to take away voting rights. Thank you. Well, and during which he often made appearances on radio and TV to attack liberals, because there's big money in that. There's no money in attacking conservatives. I know. According to federal records, FACT has worked in concert with several other nonprofits to promote conservative ideology. But a broad array of information about its donors and origins were either obfuscated or not disclosed. I wonder why. The Justice Department declined to comment on the story, and a spokesman for FACT stated that their lack of disclosure was entirely legal. Now, contrary to its claims in news releases and a tax filing, the group was created under a different name 2 years before Whitaker's arrival. According to incorporation and IRS records, at least 2 of the organizers were involved in another conservative charity using the same address. In its application to the IRS for status as a tax-exempt organization, the organizers reported that the group would study the impact of environmental regulations on businesses. Oh, radical environmentalists. In that incarnation, the group took no action and only existed on paper. One man named in IRS filings as a board member told the Washington Post. Another named in a state filing as a board member said he never agreed to be on the board. Wow, is this a Jacob Wool type of thing? Not necessarily Jacob Wool. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Also makes me wonder if it's a Mercer operation, which doesn't necessarily preclude that there's some rubles involved in this too. Whitaker's 2017 pay from the charity, more than $500,000 for the first 9 months, or half the charity's receipts for the year, according to tax filings, and the group's earlier dormant incarnation, have not been previously reported by the media. While it may have been legal, the arrangement at FACT was incredibly unusual. As a crew reported previously, Whitaker has faced criticism on numerous fronts as he has assumed the role of Attorney General in the wake of Jeff Sessions' firing. His appointment has been questioned as unconstitutional. He profited off of a company shut down by the FTC as a scam, in which the company had to pay $26 million, by the way, and there is an open criminal indictment against Whitaker as we speak. Well, as far as we know, because we also don't have any idea when he was actually appointed, because the Trump administration won't say. Wow. I guess they do want us to turn into Rome. Nor is his involvement with FACT his only time he has dabbled in right-wing dogma. He has claimed that Donald Trump's finances should be off limits to investigators and has called the special counsel probe of Russia a witch hunt. He has even said that he would have prosecuted Hillary Clinton, which is especially alarming since a new report shows Trump has repeatedly asked the White House counsel if he could do just that. And as reporting continues on that front, he's still asking. And pretty soon, it won't be an ask. Reuters brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A Russian company whose accountant was charged by federal prosecutors for attempting to meddle in U.S. elections sued Facebook Inc. on Tuesday, claiming it is a legitimate news outlet and its Facebook account should be restored. The Federal Agency of News LLC, known as FAN, and its shareholder, Evgeny Zubarev, filed a lawsuit in federal court in the Northern District of California seeking damages and an injunction to prevent Facebook from blocking its account. Facebook deleted FAN's account in April as it purged pages linked to the St. Petersburg-based Internet Research Agency, which was indicted by special counsel Robert Mueller earlier this year for flooding social media with false information in a bid to sow discord in the run-up to the 2016 U.S. election. Oh, you mean active Russian measures. Facebook did not respond to a request for comment. Peter Carr, as spokesman for Mueller, declined to comment. Fan and Zubarev said they were improperly swept up in Facebook's purge, which took down more than 270 Russian-language accounts and pages, according to the complaint. FAN is an independent, authentic, and legitimate news agency which publishes reports that are relevant and of interest to the general public, the company said in a lawsuit, and I terribly said in this terrible accent. The lawsuit argued that Facebook had effectively acted as an arm of the government in improperly impinging on its right to free speech, and cited the Civil Rights Act of 1964 in claiming Facebook discriminated against it due to its Russian origins. White people always feel like they are being discriminated against every time. Renato Mariotti, a former federal prosecutor, described those arguments as weak and predicted the plaintiffs would have a hard time gaining any traction in the courts. It's safe to say this lawsuit is not going to be very successful, he said. At first glance, it seems like a PR stunt to me, and I think at second or third glance it does as well. Van acknowledged previously sharing the same office building as the Internet Research Agency, but that was just one of those convenient types of things. You know, like all the convenient things that happen in the Russian sphere of events. Convenient heart attacks, convenient muggings that result in death, convenient shootings in the lobby of your apartment building that result in death, convenient poisonings by polonium and other weird agents, convenient falls from 5-story buildings, moving a piano from a condo, and you don't own a piano or don't even live in a condo. But it's convenient. And it also said that it did employ Elena Alskavina Kushanova, the Russian woman charged by prosecutors last month for meddling in the 2018 congressional elections, as its chief accountant since August of 2016. But the plaintiff said that her role at the company had been limited to overseeing day-to-day bookkeeping and that she was not an officer and had no direction over editorial content. Well, the plaintiffs also said they were not involved in Project Latka, a Kremlin-backed information warfare campaign prosecutors say was started in 2014 and financed by Evgeny Prigozhin. Oh, that's Putin's chef. Okay, Putin, they call him Putin chef because he owns a big catering company, and now he's Putin's chef. Kushinova was the chief accountant for Project Latka. According to the charging documents in her case, which is being prosecuted by assistant U.S. attorneys in the Justice Department's Eastern Division, or Eastern District of Virginia, and a spokesman for the district did not respond to a request by Reuters for comment. And as a reminder, Mueller is not handling the Kushinova case because his focus is on the 2016 presidential election, and the charges against her relate to the 2018 midterm elections. Okay, well, shut down Mueller. They still got a few others coming down the pike. Let's get to our break, and when we come back, we will go through weather from around the world, and oh boy, do we have weather. And we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. This week, no apology needed. For an actress best known for her work in raunchy comedies, it's strange to see Melissa McCarthy play the role of a sour, inebriated, crazy cat lady type in Can You Ever Forgive Me? In a role completely devoid of glamour or ego, McCarthy plays the real-life writer Lee Israel, who prior to 1991 had achieved a degree of success for her well-written and researched biographies. But by the time we meet her in the film, however, these glory days are over. Desperate to pay the rent, Lee discovers that she can put her writing talent to use embellishing, or in some cases inventing letters by deceased luminaries, including Dorothy Parker and Noel Coward. In other words, Lee finds a new career as a forger, and she's so good at it that she manages to convince many so-called experts that her creations are real. While this extra-legal career changes her financial situation, it does little to change a personal life that is quite empty, with the exception of fellow writer, drinking buddy, and eventual accomplice Jack Hawk, who's played by a charming Richard E. Grant. While Jack is openly gay, Lee is mostly closeted, and even the promise of a potential relationship with a shy female bookstore owner who is a fan ends due to Lee's awkwardness and inability to allow people to become close. There are laughs here, but the movie is very much a drama about isolation and human connection. Lee is only able to connect and show warmth in her writing when pretending to be somebody else. Can You Ever Forgive Me also functions as a look at the weird world of literary fans and collectors and the self-appointed experts who deal in the detritus of celebrity. While Lee's creations may have been fakes, there's nothing but authenticity in McCarthy's performance here. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Kim Lowe. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. The Atacama Desert in Chile is one of the driest spots on Earth. Sometimes can't even see any life at all.
As I was a kid, those drives were really boring because there was nothing to see.
Armando Asua Bustos was born and raised in the Atacama. He's now an astrobiologist at the Spanish National Research Council's Center for Astrobiology. And he says with closer inspection, life can be found there.
But you have to take a microscope in order to see microorganisms in those driest places in the Atacama.
Then in 2015, and again in 2017, freak storms from the Pacific flooded the Atacama. 10 times the usual amount of rain fell, turning some of the driest parts of the desert into lagoons. But the desert's hardy microbial life didn't exactly burst into bloom.
I started looking at the microscope. I couldn't see anything. So this is surprising. I was expecting to see a zoo of little things moving all around, but I couldn't see anything.
In fact, after sampling 3 of the newly submerged areas, his team found only a quarter of the microscopic species they'd previously isolated in the desert region. Perhaps, he says, because the water killed the rest through a process called osmotic shock.
The cell doesn't have the mechanism to get all the water that is going into the cell to get it out. So they just start inflating like a small balloon until they burst out.
Their results are in the journal Scientific Reports. The microbial massacre should serve as a cautionary tale, he says, as we search for similar dry-adapted life forms on Mars, because several of the life-detecting experiments performed by the Viking landers involved, you guessed it, adding water. And it would be tragic if we killed the first extraterrestrial life we found. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
Here, you are nobody. I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. And that's what Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, told Guadalupe Plasencia, who had been picked up by the San Bernardino, California County Sheriff's Office and handed over to ICE because there was a 10-year-old court order to appear as a witness issued for someone with a similar name. Ms. Plasencia kept protesting. She is, after all, and has been for decades, a U.S. citizen. She has nothing to do with immigration, nothing. And the agents in response mocked her and added for emphasis, "You are nothing." ICE eventually let Ms. Plasencia go after her daughter showed the ICE agents her mother's U.S. passport. Later, with the ACLU as her attorneys, Ms. Plasencia sued. And just recently, the federal government and the county sheriff's department settled her case for $55,000. Her ACLU of Southern California attorney, Adriana Wong, said, quote, "San Bernardino County residents like Ms. Plasencia have the right to live and work and raise their children in peace without fear that ICE will arrest them without cause. And the government should be held accountable when it violates people's rights." This case shows, fortunately, that still, at times, the government can be held to account. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
2 seismic news stories broke on Tuesday. First, Donald Trump issued a statement about the killing of American resident and Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi, in which he essentially said that the U.S. will continue to back Saudi Arabia even if the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman ordered the killing. CNN has more.
In a stunning White House press release exonerating Saudi Arabia in the murder of Washington Post writer Jamal Khashoggi, President Trump seemed to dismiss reports indicating Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was involved in the killing, writing, "Maybe he did and maybe he didn't." The statement coming just before the president was to receive a report from the CIA about the murder. A senior U.S. official says the CIA has assessed the Crown Prince directed the murder of Khashoggi. The president has been steadfast in his commitment to the Saudis as allies, and this is just the latest show of support.
At the same time, we do have an ally, and I want to stick with an ally that in many ways has been very good.
The statement points to the economic ties between the two countries. Quote, "The kingdom agreed to spend and invest $450 billion in the United States. This is a record amount of money. But the State Department says the U.S. has only received $14.5 billion as part of the deal." The statement coming after weeks of measured rhetoric about the role the Crown Prince may have played in the murder, going against evidence from the American intelligence community.
He told me that he had nothing to do with it. He told me that, I would say, maybe 5 times.
While the president says members of Congress may go a different direction when it comes to repercussions for Saudi Arabia, he's also downplaying any further evidence. The White House writing, quote, "We may never know all of the facts surrounding the murder of Mr. Jamal Khashoggi. In any case, our relationship is with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia."
Then on Tuesday evening, the New York Times broke a bombshell reporting that Donald Trump wanted to order the Department of Justice to prosecute his political enemies. MSNBC's Ari Melber explains.
Breaking news on the most significant legal scandal to hit this White House since the report that Donald Trump tried to fire Bob Mueller. This is truly a bombshell. President Donald Trump tried to order the Justice Department to prosecute not one but two of his biggest adversaries, Hillary Clinton and James Comey. This story breaking in the New York Times. The story is that in the spring, Donald Trump told his White House counsel, Don McGahn, that he wanted the DOJ officials to explicitly prosecute Hillary Clinton and James Comey. So that right there is a potentially illegal act, and that is quite important given that obstruction is still under investigation in this White House. Now, what happened next is also important. Don McGahn, according to this New York Times report, refused and then went on to try to show Donald Trump in detail why this was not only a bad idea, but a potentially impeachably bad idea. He had his White House lawyers write this memo that you're looking at, basically, that is described in the Times, saying that if they went forward with this, the consequences would be damaging and, yes, would include, quote, possible impeachment. Now, that right there is a big deal. It is usually, of course, Donald Trump's critics and adversaries who are talking about his potential impeachment. Now, we don't even know if Donald Trump read that memo, but we do know, according to the New York Times, that it was his own lawyers and his chief counsel, Don McGahn, saying, Mr. President, if you do this, you could be impeached. And that's not all. The Times reporting that Donald Trump would go on to continue to privately agitate for these investigations of Hillary Clinton, obviously his chief rival in politics, and James Comey, his former FBI director. Now, this news, I want to be clear with you, is a scale way beyond anything else we have seen in legal controversies with Donald Trump. And that's saying something.
Trump answered a few questions from the press as he was leaving the White House for Mar-a-Lago for Thanksgiving when he said of Khashoggi's murder and the CIA findings that MBS ordered it.
We put out a statement on Saudi Arabia, which I guess most of you have seen, and we'll see how that all works out. It's a very complex situation. It's a shame, but it is what it is.
It is what it is? Wow. The Democrats are preparing to take control of the House of Representatives when the 116th Congress comes into session in January. On Tuesday, Congresswoman Marcia Fudge said she no longer plans to challenge Nancy Pelosi for the role of Speaker of the House, increasing the likelihood that Pelosi will retake the gavel. As Fudge announced her support for Pelosi, Pelosi announced that Fudge will become chair of a now-defunct subcommittee on voting rights and elections. House Democrats say they will investigate the email practices of Ivanka Trump, who admitted this week that she used a personal email account to conduct government business in 2017 while functioning as an unpaid advisor to her father. She said no classified material was in her communications. Acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker has revised his ethics disclosure forms at least 5 times since he was appointed. His financial disclosures reveal he took $900,000 in salary from a so-called charity organization that took aim at Democrats, as well as $1,750 in legal fees from a dubious, now shuttered marketing company accused of fraud. 4 students who survived the deadly school shooting in Parkland, Florida in February have received an International Peace Prize for their activism against gun violence. David Hogg, Emma Gonzalez, Jacqueline Corin, and Matt Deach on Tuesday received the 2018 International Children's Peace Prize in a ceremony in Cape Town, South Africa. Archbishop Desmond Tutu presented the prize, which was awarded by youth advocacy organization Kids' Rights. And that's a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler, wishing you and your family a very happy and healthy Thanksgiving.
From UN headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 minutes. President Trump said Tuesday the U.S. intends to remain a steadfast partner of Saudi Arabia, bucking calls to reconsider that relationship after the CIA pinned the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi on the kingdom's popular crown prince. While he noted U.S. intelligence is still probing the murder, Trump seemed resigned to never know the full story. That defense of the kingdom will come as welcome relief to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the subject of a recent Reuters report on mounting calls within the royal family to replace him in the line of succession to become king. Paul Artz is a Middle East expert and author of Saudi Arabia, A Kingdom in Peril.
I'm not very confident that this is a trustworthy story.
That's because bin Salman, or MBS as he's known, is at the center of a major plan to overhaul the kingdom's economy, and ditching the 33-year-old for the 76-year-old Ahmed bin Abdul Aziz, as the Reuters piece suggested, would be a jarring change of national vision.
So much has been invested in him inside the country that I find it very difficult to accept the story that the present Kingdom of Saudi Arabia can do without MBS.
Ellen R. Wald, author of Saudi Inc. and president of Transversal Consulting, said MBS's irreplaceability is partly his handiwork after he led a purge of prominent royalty and business leaders last year, which just so happened to knock out others vying for power.
We're working with a set of more limited alternatives because Mohammed bin Salman has kind of culled the ranks.
Secure domestically and assured the U.S. relationship isn't up for debate, MBS may once again have room to operate. Now, a pliant U.S. will have to wait and see what he does next. Luke Vargas, the United Nations.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid me of this priest? We always like to begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 40 degrees Fahrenheit. We're looking at nearly the same temperature as yesterday. Even though they said we were going to be warm yesterday in the mid-60s, we only got up to about 60. So we are expected to be about 60 today, which means we'll be in the mid-50s. Fortunately, those overnight lows will be in the, low to mid-40s, which is about right. And tomorrow, though, we're going to cool off quite a bit, and we'll be down to 48 to 50 degrees. But in the meantime, we are currently in a active wind advisory. Winds are now negligible out of the southwest, but in just a few hours, they will be shifting out of the south-southeast at 5 to 10 miles an hour to start off, bringing almost a quarter inch of rain. And as I look out from the mothership, we are socked in, not quite raining yet, but that should be within the next couple of hours. And then tonight we'll be getting, just about, not quite a quarter inch overnight. And with a low around 40 to 45, winds will then be light and variable. But then they will pick up tomorrow at 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusts at 30 to 40, which is what we are expected to have today. And let's see, expecting a third of an inch of rain tomorrow, Thanksgiving Day. And then Friday, the same. We're going to get some more rain on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, a little bit of a drying out. And we are forecast next week to have rain for, they're calling it showers, which is serious here in Oregon, once you start calling it showers. And that should be for the whole of the week. And I only hope, because a lot of the deep-rooted conifers need the rain. Pollen is not an issue right now. It's rated as none. The air quality index right now is moderate at 60 because the winds are not churning up very much right now. And that daytime UV index is in the green range of low at 1. Second day in a row we've had that. Visibility is up to 9 miles but should decrease a bit. Let's see. The ceiling is at 8,000 feet. With a few clouds at 6,000, so not so terribly high, not so terribly low. Humidity, the relative humidity is at 68%. The barometric pressure is 29.78 inches and falling. And in terms of the humidity, we should be getting more humid as the rain comes along, you would expect. All right, weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 43 and partly cloudy. Paris is 42 degrees and sunny. Rome is 59 degrees with rain with an active flood warning. Oh my. Kiev is 31 and cloudy. Kabul is 50 degrees and partly cloudy. Hong Kong, 68 and mostly cloudy. Tokyo is 51 and merely cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 68 degrees and clear, and they don't even have body thetans there as far as we know. San Francisco, California is 57 and cloudy, and I believe they have a weather warning, and I believe it's for smoke. We'll see if it's bad air still. Oh, I'm sorry, it's a small craft advisory because they have the winds that we will be getting. So it's coming from them. And New York is 42 degrees and cloudy, and your active weather advisory is also a small craft advisory with, let's see what your wind gusts will be, New York. Oh my gosh. You have sustained winds at 10 to 20 miles per hour. Tonight they will increase at 15 to 25 miles per hour, and sustained winds will remain at that 15 to 25 miles per hour through tomorrow with gusts of 50 to 60 miles per hour. So do take care. Hold on to your hats. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Charlie Crow of Think Progress brings us this first offering here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Dateline, Oakland, California. As the deadliest and most destructive wildfire in the state's history burns on, millions of Californians living hundreds of miles away have been forced to grapple not only with the impacts, but what it portends. This should be a wake-up call. Dr. Carrie Nadeau, pediatric asthma and allergy specialist at Stanford University, told Think Progress, we should say, how do we mitigate this? How do we make sure that in 2 weeks, this is not just something that's out of sight, out of mind? The campfire has claimed the lives of over 80 people so far, with roughly 1,000 others listed as missing. It leveled the town of Paradise, forcing newly homeless survivors to sleep in tent camps, while norovirus spread through the few shelters available. In a state already feeling the housing squeeze, an estimated 100,000 people have been displaced by the fire. And in this reporter's opinion, you know how homeless people are treated. They are like zombies. They're evil people. Remnants of the nightmarish scene spread downwind to create something of a secondary hazard, as the air quality throughout the greater Bay Area, roughly 150 miles south of the fire, has been unhealthy for several days in a row. Last Friday, the air quality index for San Francisco reached 271 parts per million, the equivalent of smoking 10 cigarettes per day. Now, I live in, I guess you would say, a much less populated area here in Southern Oregon, and our air quality index was a tad higher than that 271 parts per million when we were in the throes of the fires, the wildfires that ringed us. Now, I'm talking, I guess sparsely populated, but it's still quite a bit of people. Medford, Grants Pass, all the towns in between. There's quite a few people that live here. 271 parts per million. Oh, okay. At the highest parts per million on the air quality index here, 320. Ouch. That's called toxic. California has always grappled with fires, but several factors, including hot, dry conditions exacerbated by climate change and humans increasingly encroaching on forests, have ushered in an era of unprecedented wildfires. That's not only a serious concern for people living in high-risk areas, but as the past several days have shown, millions of others who live downwind. Well, it is a record for their air alerts in the Bay Area. They say they haven't had 13 in a row before. During last year's severe North Bay fires, Bay Area Air Quality Board issued 10 alerts in a row. A combination of light winds, lack of rain, and inversion layers commonly seen in the Bay Area in winter. A layer of warmer air developing over colder air and trapping pollution close to the ground, that's what an inversion layer is, has kept the wildfire smoke stagnant throughout the area. Rain is forecast, and actually I believe they may be having rain right now. But that's not a cure-all, because then it triggers landslides, doesn't it? Especially over newly burned areas, almost as God intended it. Now, the painful irony, of course, is that California has arguably done more than any other state to address climate change. Scientists say more needs to be done to decrease fire risk, protect communities in the danger zones, and safeguard the health of communities far away. And the push for comprehensive policies to address the new wildfire reality does not dissipate when the smoke clears. This is going to happen again. We know that the setup is just too much from the drought condition. It is scary, but it should not stun us. It should not let us become complacent.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Stephanie Nebehay of Reuters brings us this final offering here at the Chef's Table in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Switzerland votes this Sunday on an issue of national importance that has divided the Alpine country. Whether to subsidize farmers who let their cows and goats' horns grow naturally. The referendum on preserving the dignity of livestock was initiated by farmer Armin Kapoor, 66, a self-described rebel. He says that listening to his cows inspired his 9-year campaign for cash to fund the extra grazing space horned animals need, and which he hopes will reduce dehorning. We must respect cows as they are. Leave them their horns. When you look at them, they always hold their head high and are proud. When you remove the horns, they are sad. And 3/4 of Swiss cows, who are a national symbol and tourist attraction, are dehorned or genetically hornless. Well, in this reporter's opinion, and also a chef who grew up on a little farm, a dairy farm, by the way, I'm not for dehorning. I know that it may be safer for some. It apparently allows more space to be used because, apparently you can see that cattle with horns take up more space because of their horns. And we always want to mold nature to our image, and nature has a way of rebelling. I think that our Swiss farmer here may be onto something, but it's also cruel, in this reporter's opinion. Well, let us leave here now, and we'll be back tomorrow. It will be Thanksgiving Day, and I will have a show. I'm still thinking about whether I'll do Friday as a reprise of something or do a live show. I don't know yet. We'll see, okay? But for tomorrow, we will visit with you for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays on Thanksgiving. Do listen to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will visit with you tomorrow right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.